The first group that encountered discrimination in what would become the United States, of course, were the Native Americans, who were kind enough to welcome the Europeans in, but then had to deal with Europeans who thought that they were better than them and that they should be working to support them. And Native Americans from very early on tried to resist this. Unfortunately, because of the power relationships that existed, they were unable to do so. And they tried doing it through different types of movements and resistance, and they tried to use the legal system, like in the case of the Cherokee Nation versus Georgia. But the discrimination against them simply because of their origin continued up until the point of putting them on reservations. And white people talking about the need to kill the Indian to save the man, and the idea that you couldn't live in this country freely unless you were like a white man. African Americans, on the other hand, have faced discrimination ever since the first Africans were brought to the Dutch colonies in about 1619. Their fate, of course, was intimately tied to the issue of slavery, and the discrimination against them simply because of the color of their skin continued from then on up until today, despite the many types of movements that there were to try to resist the discrimination against them. But the stereotypes that developed, unfortunately, were often based on some of the types of resistance that they did, like slowing down their work or refusing to do things quickly, led to stereotypes that they were lazy or they were stupid. In the late 50s, we began to see the emergence of African American movement to try and get their rights, to get their equality. But there had been movements before it, like Marcus Garvey's Black is Beautiful movement in the late 1800s. But it was in the late 50s that we saw the civil rights movement and the leadership of people like Martin Luther King Jr. and Rosa Parks, where it became more institutionalized through organizations like the Southern Christian Leadership Council. And then we did see a power movement when many African Americans felt like they weren't getting their rights respected. We saw that instead of a passive, nonviolent movement, they moved to power movements, like under the leadership of Malcolm X and the Black Panthers. Unfortunately, many of those stereotypes, even from the days of slavery, still continue today. And minority groups in the United States have constantly seen that their rights are limited simply because of their racial or ethnic group. The most recent example would be the Japanese Americans during World War II, who were actually put into internment camps, not because they had done anything wrong, but simply because they had been of Japanese origin, even if they were United States citizens. So the fight for equal rights and against discrimination, while we look at it as something being historical, and it certainly is, it's still a problem that continues today.
Unfortunately, the legacy of discrimination against both Native Americans and African Americans that existed in the 1960s still exists today, and those images are almost always a negative view on both cultures.
Personally, no.
Yes.
Like, how are you discriminated?
Oh, racist comments when I was young, in my previous school. I'll be called Chino all the time.
No.
I feel like I have, maybe a little bit, and it was probably when I first came to Guatemala, and being in a country where at the time, it didn't seem like a lot of Americans were where I was getting out and around, and I found that people didn't give weight on me in places or on things and just kind of pushed me away initially, but since then, though, things have been good.
Not really.
Yes. For being German, like they like to play the Nazi. They do all that.
It wasn't necessarily racism more than sexism.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, at airports with racial profiling.
Have I experienced discrimination? Yes.
In which way, or?
Okay, I've experienced discrimination of people assuming that because I'm a Caucasian male that I know more than I actually do.
I think racist society is one where there are unequal opportunities based on race or class. I think it's one where people are insulted or mocked because of their race, and where that's encouraged, and where that's, where that's even honored.
Ignorant and well, not educated too, and also difficult to fit in with, because they won't accept you as they won't accept who you are and discriminate.
One that does not appreciate differences, or that cannot accept that everyone's different, that is good.
A racist society would be a society that doesn't accept people for their differences, and it doesn't mean your difference of your skin color, or it's just if you're a different type of person that they just don't accept you and they turn away and don't allow you to become part of the society.
Where a majority oppresses a minority based on racial features, physical features.
A society which discriminates people based on their religion, physical features, ethnicity.
A racist society is one that doesn't see all people as equals and treats other people as lesser than.
I don't know, just any discrimination in general. Any stereotype in general which affects your life in any social way. Limits your activities, causes hatred between people or something like that.
A racist society is let me start with just defining racism. Racism is the notion, A, that your own ethnic stock is superior to that of others, and B, that you make prejudgments about racial or ethnic groups, for example, religious groups, that you've already pigeonholed and labeled and stereotyped people to a really great extent. So a racist society would be a large multiplication of it. I don't think there's any society that doesn't have it to some extent.
Well, I try and see everybody equally. I try and look at people for who they are and what they do rather than the color of their skin, what they wear. And I try and be fair in all that I do. I try and recognize the value of the human heart, which is the same in all races.
I don't discriminate like they did to me. I don't view color.
Because I don't think you're in Maya can be very racist, because we're all different, and we've learned to understand and respect our differences because they give more for society.
Well, I like to think I embrace all cultures, and I love learning about people from different places and learning about their lives and how they grew up and what makes them who they are.
I try to be as equal as possible to all different racial people, regardless of age, gender, facial features, etc.
I treat everybody equal. I don't discriminate by skin color or race or anything like that.
That I try to treat all people as equals, and I don't look at what's on the outside of people, like where they come from, etc., but we value them as human beings.
I don't know, I just try to treat people equally and try to make everyone feel welcome.
Great question, and I'm not sure. Here's the thing. I'll be honest with you. I think I grew up in a period, I'm almost 50, and I grew up in a period of time when I was taught certain things growing up that I'm not sure I've 100% shaken off. And I'm not saying that no matter how much re-education I have, I think the most important part is not passing it on to the next generation.
In the United States? Ooh, that's tough. I think historically it's been the black people, but I think the Arab people are starting to become more and more discriminated against because of the whole situation with 9/11 and people aren't understanding their culture and their religion.
Black people.
Latinos. Hispanics. Thank you.
Yay! Okay, in the United States, well, it's interesting. I've always thought that African Americans were the most discriminated, but I may think in this day and age it's a Muslim population that might be most discriminated against.
Between blacks and Native Americans.
Latinos, i.e. Mexicans. Definitely.
In the United States right now, I would say that anybody of Mexican or Latin American descent, just because of the issues right now with immigration.
I don't know, I'd like to say Hispanics in general.
Thank you.
Most discriminated minority in the United States, easily African Americans.
This year, Colegio Maya champions the slogan "Celebrating Diversity" as its theme. In order to observe the truth of those words in the student and administrative bodies, we have asked Colegio Maya students and teachers to identify individuals who were champions of their causes. The following graph shows the results of the people who correctly identified the images. We interviewed 15 people in total. We have also surveyed the students concerning their personal use of racist terms in order to better understand the Colegio Maya community and its stand concerning respect for diversity. The following graph shows the result of the people who use racist terms. We surveyed 20 people in total.